Hello. Today we're going to talk about how we sleep and how we wake, and we're going to spend some time learning about the restorative sleep program. My name is Heather Johnson. I'm an RN and resource nurse with Imperia. But first, let's start off with who is Imperia? Imperia is made up of 4 organizations: Cassia, St. Therese, Presbyterian Homes, and Volunteers of America. These 4 organizations came together back in the early 2000s with the recognition that they were all doing quality improvement in their own silos. The leaders of these organizations decided, you know what, if we could pool our resources when it comes to quality improvement in long-term care, let's do it. And we can advance aging services together. So the organizations formed then what is known as Imperia today. Imperia is a nonprofit collaborative that works on quality improvement initiatives to strengthen the aging services. Imperia inspires innovative programs and solutions. We also challenge the status quo with a commitment to know better and to do better. And we're a nationally recognized leader who strengthens the aging service industry by then sharing our empirical results of applied research in our signature programs. We often quote an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go together. And that's truly what Imperia strives to do. Our objectives today in this course is 1, I want to strengthen your critical thinking skills by applying the principles of root cause analysis to restorative sleep, which is really a basic biological need. 2, I want to help challenge then practices that disturb consolidated sleep for nursing home or healthcare settings. And 3, to inspire you to create a culture of restorative sleep to serve as a foundation to addressing challenges in caring for the older adult. In our work, we often quote Maya Angelou, and she said this, "I did then what I knew how to do. Now that I know better, I do better." Our hope for you today is that you will learn something new to take with you today to go out then and do better. Why is restorative sleep so important? Why are we talking about it today? Restorative sleep is so important because this is really the restart of our bodies. If we think of our bodies like a cell phone, we drain our batteries during the course of a day on a cell phone and plug them in at night to recharge. We should be doing the same thing for our bodies. It is really the only time that we have true physical restoration and true psychosocial restoration. Florence Nightingale said this, "It is our responsibility as caregivers, as nurses, as nursing assistants, as staff members in long-term care, but it is our responsibility to put the patient in the best condition possible for nature to act upon him." And one of the ways we can do that is through restorative sleep. Restorative sleep is a basic human need. Abraham Maslow, years ago, when he created the hierarchy of needs, you can see that he indicated sleep as a basic physiological need, just as important as breathing, food, water, shelter, and clothing. Now, when I went to nursing school a number of years ago, I didn't realize that sleep was a basic physiological need. In order for ourselves then to reach what's known as self-actualization, the top of this pyramid, we need to make sure that each of those areas, from physiological needs, safety and security, love and belonging, self-esteem, are all met so we can climb then this hierarchy of human needs. When we talk about restorative sleep, I want you to understand that what we're talking about with restorative sleep is that it's a continuous significant sleep period within a 24-hour day, and it's 7 to 9 hours of uninterrupted time, and it's occurring at night. Human beings were created to be diurnal creatures. Diurnal means I am up and awake when the sun is out, and when the sun goes down, I go to sleep. That's how our bodies work, and that's how our hormones are regulated, is based off of light. So that's important for us to understand that. When we then have uninterrupted sleep, we have true restorative sleep. What happens then with our bodies and our mind when we're getting good restorative sleep? What happens is we know there is an impact on the mind and there's an impact on the body. The impact on the mind is we know that memories are cemented, especially when it comes to our short-term memories. Our emotions are processed, and our stressors from the day, we relive in our brain and process them when we're getting deep restorative sleep. The impact then on the body is we know in the deepest stages of sleep, we have cell tissue repair and regeneration that is happening. There is cellular growth occurring. Our hormones are regulated. We have hundreds of hormones in our body, and the majority of those hormones are regulated in deep stages of sleep. One being our growth hormone. So that old adage, our wives' tale, my child grew overnight, there's some truth to that because those hormones are regulated and created during the course of the night. And our immunity is built, especially when it comes to those T4 cancer-fighting cells and our B cells, which fight pathogens. How do we sleep and how do we wake? Well, we got a number of things going on in our body that tells us when to sleep and when to wake. And it starts off with what's known as our circadian rhythm, or really our biological clock, and also what's known as our sleep-wake homeostasis. So how do we sleep? In the presence of darkness, our bodies create a hormone called melatonin. Now, melatonin is created and released from what's known as your pineal gland in the center of your brain. If I were to dissect my brain into quarters, in the very center of my brain would be this pine cone shaped gland known as the pineal gland. And as the sun starts to go down at night, melatonin is created and released from that pineal gland into my body. The more melatonin then that's created and released, the higher drive for sleep I have at night. The other piece that helps us to fall asleep at night is what's known as the hormone adenosine. Now, adenosine is a hormone, but it acts as a neurotransmitter in that it tells my body what to do. You see those tally marks there. The more tally marks that are there indicate how busy and active I am during the course of the day. The more busy and active I am during the course of the day, the higher my adenosine levels. The higher the adenosine levels, the higher drive for sleep I have at night. How do we wake? We wake based off of what's known as the production of serotonin. So in the presence of light, when we're exposed to good, bright white light, typically sunlight, our bodies create the hormone serotonin. Now, serotonin's been nicknamed as the happy feel-good hormone, and we can see why. When we're exposed to sunlight, serotonin gives us a good feeling, and it keeps us awake and engaged during the course of the day. The other hormone that you see there is called cortisol. Now, at about 2-3 o'clock in the morning, from our gut, we produce cortisol. Cortisol enters into our bloodstream 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and it tells my body to then wake up. Now, if we take a look at this, and we consider the people that we work with in long-term care, we have residents that, because of the aging process, because of dementia, may have some atrophy to their brain. So their melatonin production may not be what it is for you or I. Research has said that at about the age of 75, our bodies produce about half of the melatonin it did when it was younger. So, with that knowledge, that's all the more reasons we need to then exhaust people during the course of the day to create high adenosine levels in their bodies to drive their bodies for sleep at night. What we see here now are the different cycles and stages of sleep. Our bodies go through 4 to 5 cycles per night. You see that at the top of the screen there. 4 to 5 cycles a night, each of those cycles lasting 90 to 120 minutes. And that is what makes up then those 7 to 9 hours of sleep in a nighttime. You also see along the left side of your screen the different stages. Stage 1, Stage 2, Stage 3, and REM sleep. So let's break this down a bit. When our bodies go to sleep at the beginning of the night, we enter into what's known as Stage 1 sleep. In Stage 1 sleep, our bodies are just beginning to drown out the rest of the world. This is the stage of sleep that if you've ever dozed off for just a second and woken up to a sudden jerk, as though maybe you're falling down the stairs or falling off a cliff, that is Stage 1 sleep. You're having a hypotonic jerk, and those are normal. But Stage 1 sleep, again, should only happen one time during the course of the night, and that's initially when we first fall asleep. Our bodies then go into stage 2 sleep. And in stage 2 sleep, our brain is very active. It's deciding whether or not I'm going to save, file, or trash my learnings of the day. So today, when you go to sleep at night, I hope you hit save on this training. So save, file, or trash. In stage 2 sleep, we start to see vital signs. So blood pressure, respirations, temperatures start to drop just a little bit. Heart rate drop a little bit. In stage 2 sleep, if somebody said your name or an identifier something you'd identify with, you'd wake up. But stage 2 sleep, you're still preparing your body yet for a deeper sleep. Our bodies then enter into what's known as stage 3 sleep. And I've nicknamed this or coined it the omega of body healing, because that's really what stage 3 sleep is. That's why you see the body in the blue on this slide. This is the stage of sleep where cell tissue repair and regeneration happens. This is the stage of sleep where a lot of our hormone regulation is happening. This is the stage of sleep where our immunity is being built. Our cancer-fighting cells, those T4 cells, created and released in deep stages of sleep, stage 3. And those B cells, those pathogen-fighting cells, created and released in deep stages of sleep. This is the stage of sleep that if you've ever known somebody to be placed in a medically induced coma, the physicians are looking for brainwave activity that indicates they're in stage 3 sleep, and that's where they know they can hold them with the medication, with the sedative, because they understand that it's in stage 3 sleep, that's where the body healing is happening. Our bodies then go into what's known as REM, rapid eye movement. Some people refer to it as the dream stage, and that's where the bulk of the mind healing happens. The emotional healing, the psychosocial healing happens in that stage, in REM sleep. So you'll see on your slide, that's the orange with the head, the outline of a head. It's very important to note that if somebody were to be woken up in any of these stages, they don't get to pick back up where they left off. So if you woke somebody up after they've fallen asleep for a few hours, they don't get to start back at where they left off. They have to start back at stage 1 sleep. It's important to remember, restorative sleep is uninterrupted sleep. And again, we need 7 to 9 hours as an adult. What we do know happens is we cause then sleep fragmentation when we're waking people up. And sleep fragmentation is defined as sleep that is interrupted throughout the night, inhibiting the opportunity for that person then to have restorative sleep. And restorative sleep, again, is required for overall health and well-being. As much as we can consolidate people's sleep, that is exactly what we need to do, with the end goal, 7 to 9 hours. Now, the outcomes when people are not getting good restorative sleep are many. We know that there's an impact on the mind and there's an impact on the body when people get poor sleep. People will often suffer some cognitive impairment when they're not getting a good enough sleep. Some people will even refer to it as it feels as though they're a little intoxicated when they're overly tired. That's the memory and cognitive impairment. We see higher incidence of depression and anxiety, delusions, paranoia, hallucinations, and oftentimes disorganized speech. There's an impact on the body, and the impact on the body shows that people will often have poor strength and balance. We see more falls in long-term care when people are not getting good restorative sleep. People are far more accident prone because of that cognitive impairment and their balance and strength, much more accident prone. In the United States, we have more car accidents, vehicle accidents related to drowsy driving than intoxicated driving. People's immunity is impaired. We see higher incidence of colds and viruses when people are not getting good restorative sleep. There's a direct impact on the heart. We see more incidence of heart disease, hormonal changes, and regulation problems. People are at an increased risk of developing cancer. There's also an increase to pain sensitivity when somebody is overly tired and they're not getting good restorative sleep. Higher blood pressure, obesity. We see metabolism being thrown off for people when they're not getting good restorative sleep, and impaired growth and impaired healing. Now, as a nurse, these are all problems that I've care planned for when people have fragmented sleep. And what we need to do is we need to understand that the root cause of many of these problems that we care plan for or that we see in individuals oftentimes can be related to fragmented sleep. And if we can improve somebody's sleep, potentially we could see all of these areas being positively affected by it. We'll see less antipsychotic medications given because people are not having the delusions or the hallucinations or the paranoia. We see less infections. When it comes to behavioral expressions, we see a decrease in behavioral expressions for people when they're getting good restorative sleep. We also see less falls when people are getting restorative sleep. So what does the research say when it comes to the top 10 sleep disturbances in congregate living situations? Now, back in 2010, Harvard Medical School did a study where they looked at the top 10 disturbances in congregate living situations. So that being long-term care and hospital-type settings. And what they came back with from the research said that people indicated that noise was the number one disturbance when it comes to sleep. Light is the second, sleeping environment is the third, fourth is napping, 5 medications, 6 continence needs, 7 pain, 8 positioning, 9 activity or lack of activity, so inactivity, and 10 being diet. So let's take a look at these. Noise. Did you know that the word noise actually is a derivative, a Latin derivative for the word nausea? So noise being the number one sleep disturbance. What did people say in this study was the problem? Staff conversations and loud personal alarms. So what do we do about that? 1, we should audit and monitor those sound levels. To be conducive to sleep at night, you want decibel readings between 30 and 40 decibels, which is white noise, or less, to be conducive again to sleep. We want to reduce then noisy times. When are those noisy times happening? Is it when evening shift is leaving and night shift is coming on? Remind people to please be quiet as people are sleeping. Reduce noisy areas. Find out where those noisy areas are in your community. And do what you can then to eliminate those noises. Eliminate personal alarm use. And identify loud-speaking staff. We need to be the police of each other. And if we have a coworker that's talking loud and it could be disruptive while a resident is sleeping at night, it needs to be okay to give them the reminder to please be quiet. Light. So what is the problem with light? Residents receiving then too much light when they're trying to sleep and not enough light during the course of the daytime. We need so much light during the day to help us to set our circadian rhythm. And when we're not exposed to good sunlight, that's difficult to do. What can we do then? We can set hallway lights on timers so that they automatically go off at 8 p.m. and on at 8 a.m. Take human error out of the mix. Install circadian rhythm lighting that mimic the sun. That helps then set that circadian rhythm. Hug lights at nighttime being used by staff. What we do know with light is that amber colored light, amber or red colored light, does not disrupt that production of melatonin in our pineal gland, whereas if we're exposed to white or blue light, that does disrupt and shuts off the melatonin production. Again, amber and red light does not. So using hug lights during the nighttime, staff wearing those when they're rounding. Pathway motion detector lights at night in resident rooms. Encouraging activities to be held outdoors during the course of the day. Get people exposed to that sunlight where they can start producing that great serotonin, happy, feel-good hormone. Encourage family members or residents to partake in activities near windows. That's the next best thing to being outside. And open the blinds. The next is sleeping environment. Problem there is uncomfortable sleeping surfaces. We need to understand that mattresses have a shelf life, a manufacturer's suggested time to have them replaced. Also, pillows, blankets, and then pajamas. So what are some solutions then to those common problems and uncomfortable sleeping surfaces for people? 1, check those mattresses, check those dates. Are they past the manufacturer guidelines? People should be sleeping on pressure relieving mattresses, low airflow, high density mattresses. When it comes to pillows, are people allowed to bring their own pillow when they come to your community? If they can, they should be encouraged to bring it. Otherwise, the community should offer soft, medium, or firm pillows based on the person's preferences, and a full body pillow where that can provide some comfort. Napping. Research has showed that napping more than 30 minutes a day disrupts our good restorative sleep at night. When somebody naps longer than 30 minutes during the course of the day, their bodies start to get in those deeper stages of sleep. we want to keep people, if they are sleeping during the day, down to 1 30-minute nap or less per day, so their bodies don't have a chance to go into those deeper stages. Again, too much napping during the day can interrupt somebody's sleep at night. With that means there needs to be some education, and education not only for staff, but residents and families on why it's important that, again, somebody's napping should be limited to 1 30-minute nap or less per day. NASA's done a lot of research when it comes to daytime napping, and they even have it down to 26 minutes or less per day for their astronauts. Medications. We know that there are a lot of medications that carry side effects. Some carrying side effects of causing insomnia or sleepiness. We should align those medications to be administered when they can be of assistance for somebody and support somebody's sleep-wake schedule. So looking at the timing of medications for individuals. Also, not waking people to give them medications that they need. With that, looking at liberalized medication passes, where you have a window of time or a window of opportunity to pass a medication versus really strict guidelines with a specific time where possible. Align also medications then to best support somebody's biological clock and their circadian rhythm. Continence needs problem. We know that people are often up throughout the night with frequent voiding and needing to use the restroom. We need to encourage people right before bed to use the restroom one last time before they go to bed at night. And for some, that may be double voiding. Having the person sit down and void, stand up, shift their weight a little bit, and then sit back down and try to void for a second time to ensure that they are emptying their bladder before bed. We also should look at timing of laxatives, their stool softeners, foods and fluids that we take in, and any diuretics that may also interfere with sleep. We should, for ourselves, also increase our fluids in the morning and taper them off as the day goes on. And look into any type of overnight incontinent product if somebody does have problems with enuresis. Pain. So pain can cause discomfort and restlessness, and it can also increase when somebody's not getting good sleep. They can also have an increase in their pain sensitivity. Solutions, what should we do about it then? What are those interventions? First and foremost, we should identify if that cause of the problem is either a physical problem or an emotional problem, because we may address it differently. So discover the root cause of that problem that's causing their pain in the first place. Where there's an opportunity to use long-acting pain medications, so you're not waking an individual or they're not waking in pain to receive then a medication to help, we should administer long-acting medications before somebody goes to bed at night where it's deemed appropriate. Also, take a look at what alternative comfort measures can be taken to help relieve any type of pain that the person is having. Non-farm interventions. Positioning. Big problem here is oftentimes we're stuck in this tradition of standard 2-hour rounding, and not everybody needs to be rounded on every 2 hours. I'd encourage you to take a look at the person's and assess the person's skin conditions for tolerating longer periods of time without being repositioned and causing unwanted effects on the skin. So the longer a person can go undisturbed, the better. When it comes to tissue tolerance and assessments that nurses do to see how long we can go without needing to reposition somebody, we should push those times out from 2 hours to 3 hours, 3 hours to 4 hours, 4 to 6, and 6 to 8, and ultimately getting them to the golden 7 to 9 hours uninterrupted. Activity and inactivity. Well, we know that there's a lot of boredom that oftentimes happens, and when people are bored, they may nap during the course of a day. So let's stop the boredom. Let's ask residents, what is it you'd like to do? What would you stay up to do? When people are bored, there is a lack of engagement, and oftentimes people feel a lack of purpose. And we all have a purpose, and we should figure out what that is. Again, we need to look at our body as a rechargeable battery. For us to get the best charge out of our batteries, we need to fully exhaust that battery during the course of the day so we can sleep at night. Again, that cell phone analogy. When it comes to diet, there are things we can do to help with our sleep and our wake. First, we must understand that food and fluid intake can directly affect our elimination status. Spicy foods, caffeines, and sugars can all disrupt our sleep. Foods and fluids can also help and promote then our circadian rhythm. So we're going to find out what some of those foods are and what we can do to help support our sleep and wake schedule. We want to align foods and fluids then to support our biological clock and our circadian rhythm. So here on the screen, you see some foods that help then enhance our sleep and our wake. In the morning, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful practice to have protein, have meats, cheese, fishes, and yogurt in the morning. In the United States, we have this a little bit backwards. If we lived over in Europe, the things that you see here on the screen align with the European diet. We could learn. In the United States, we often load our children up with a bowl of cereal before they head out to school for the day. So again, we have it reversed. But what can we do? We can encourage people to eat more protein in the mornings. As far as sodium intake, if somebody's diet does allow, that's the time then to have the sausage and the bacon and the prepared preserved meat. Vitamin C, foods high in vitamin C also help our wakefulness. Oranges, strawberries, cantaloupe, kiwi are all great sources to help support our wake schedule or our wake. And caffeine, that's the time to have the caffeinated coffee and that hot chocolate. In the evenings then, what can we do to help promote our sleep? We should have the complex carbs later in the day as a bedtime snack. And a good bedtime snack would be whole grain cereal and milk. Peanut butter spread on whole wheat toast or peanut butter on an apple is a great HS snack. Oatmeal and raisin cookie. Potassium, foods containing potassium are great for the evening. Bananas in particular. Bananas not only contain potassium is a cardiac relaxant, so it helps slow that heart rate a little bit and encourages somebody to sleep. But it also has melatonin in it. Dried fruits, there's a lot of dried fruits that also contain melatonin. Almonds, cheese, popcorn, unsalted, would be great foods. And apple pie and ice cream also are great sleep foods. Actigraphy. So in your buildings, what are some tools that we're using to help identify people's sleep and wake schedules and their sleep and wake efficiencies? One of the tools that we use in your community is called actigraphy, otherwise nicknamed the sleep watch. And what does this measure? It tells us, one, when the person is going to bed at night, when they get up. It also tells us what's known as the sleep latency. And sleep latency is that time somebody first drifts off to sleep during the course of a night. Ideally, you'd want it less than 20 to 30 minutes. So from the time my head hits the pillow till the time I fall asleep. The total time that somebody spends in bed at night, and also what's known as WASO, or wake after sleep onset. So once I've dozed off for the night, how many minutes after that was I awake during the course of our nighttime? We want that time to be as low as it can possibly be. Naps, it tells us daytime napping. How often are they happening and for how long they're happening? Again, anything over 30 minutes robs the sleep bank at night. And TULT, the time above light threshold. How much good bright white light is the person getting during the course of the day, and is it enough? It also tells us the sleep efficiency. Is a person getting good sleep efficiency, which is the time in bed divided by the time asleep? For residents that live in our care communities, we want that to be 80% or better. It also tells us the nighttime disturbances. How many disturbances are they having during the course of the night? Is it them waking themselves up? Is it a roommate? Is it us waking somebody up? All of those things affect then what's known then as the sleep cycle here. With actigraphy, a person wears that watch 3 to 4 or up to 7 days and nights continuously. So we get a great picture of what's happening with their sleep and wake cycle. What it also does is it produces then this graph called the sleep cycle graph. And we're able to take apart this information along with what's known as a clinician's report that gives us a lot of statistical data to take a look at. But I wanted to show you here what one of the graphs does look like. The yellow line you can see is somebody's light exposure during the course of the day, and you can see that drop off as the day goes on. This graph goes from noon to noon. The green area is a rest period that happened before this person was able to fall asleep for the night. The blue is the sleep. We call that major rest. And then there's another area at the very end of the blue that shows snooze, where that person was still a little bit drowsy but remained in bed. The red and black at the bottom of this graph shows the activity and the activity level of the person during the course of the day. Each of these blocks are a 1 hour period of time. So it helps us to break down then how often the person is napping, when they're napping, and again, the duration of the nap. I hope you found today helpful. And I want to close with this. Again, Maya Angelou said, "I did then what I knew how to do. Now that I know better, I do better." And my hope for you is now that you know better, it's your turn to go and do better. I hope also in today you were able to pick up some knowledge for yourself in regards to sleep, and that you understand how important sleep is for your own personal health. Please connect with us on social media. We have an Imperia.blog that you can take a look at some of our latest writings, or on YouTube, or like us on Facebook or Twitter. You can also check out our webpage at www.imperia.org for any resource and further information. Before we're done today, you're going to be given a competency test. And I want you to answer this competency test based on the knowledge you gained today, and hopefully you'll get 100%. You'll also be earning a 1 contact hour, and you can see your staff development nurse for that certificate. Have a wonderful day and sleep well.